Welcome. So, if anyone comes to these talks a lot, this is a slightly different kind of talk that I'm going to give today. It's more personal, more experimental, and quite possibly more surprising. This is a talk about what it's like to have a new and difficult idea as a young scientist, and then I'm going to give you that idea because it's the most fantastic, exciting idea. But before I give it to you, I want to talk about how we appraise and approach ideas, because it's easy to turn around to an idea and say no without really thinking about it. So I want to explore the whole concept of how we evaluate the ideas that are put in front of us. My name is Zephyr Penoyre. I am a PhD student here. I am first and foremost a mathematician. All of you guys, I'm sure, are here to see beautiful night sky stars. I never did that until I, frankly, was helping you guys see night sky stars here. I love the mathematics of and the motion of galaxies, of stars, of planets, and that's the lens through which I studied the universe. This is a photo of a talk I gave in New York of how, if you were to fake the moon landing, you would go about doing it. And my talk is going to be focused around why I haven't seen this. I think this is one of the most beautiful images I can imagine. I can't think of anyone who wouldn't want to see this. The sun reflected off the oceans, the long shadows of the clouds, and the thin blue line. Why haven't we all had the opportunity to see this? Because 50 years ago, it might seem like humans were about to go to space. And then we didn't. Still, there's few people in space, little exploration of space, and I think the reasons for that are fascinating, and they tell us a lot both about space and physics and science, and about how we as a society react to new ideas. So I'm going to tell you in this talk that we can and are about to establish a permanent presence in space, that we are ready to become a space-faring species. And I'm going to tell you about an idea that helps make all of this possible. And it's a new idea, and you'll be some of the first to hear it, and it's one of mine. And I will be fascinated and really interested to hear how you react to it and how you go about evaluating it. Because we can go to space, and we are about to go to space, and the reasons that we haven't aren't what we might think they are. I don't think it's the economics, I don't think it's the politics, and I don't think it's the physics that are holding us back from being a spacefaring species. I think it's a sociological reason. I think the reason that we have not gone to space is that we've decided that we can't go to space. And I think this was easy to decide, and I think maybe when we as a species decided it, it was roughly speaking true. And it no longer is, and that's going to be a really hard opinion to break. If you walk away with one thing from this talk, even separate from all the physics, all of the rocket ships, it's the idea that each and every community, society and culture is defined more than anything else by how they choose to accept and appraise and reject ideas. This is what unifies us and this is what divides us. And to change how we go through our lives, we have to change how we look at new ideas. And what new ideas are we open to? So there's 1,000 different ways you can look at a new idea. There's much too much on here to talk about. Lots of them are weird side bits of philosophy. Some of them I've made up. Probably on here you can see a few ways of thinking about ideas that you relate to. But I want to ask you something that I don't think I have ever been asked in my life, and I think a lot of people haven't been asked in their life, which is how you, each personally, evaluate whether an idea is true and worthy and something that you're going to take forward with you. Because that's not easy, and it's not simple, and depending on how you do it, you can go into whole different parts of human culture and human ambition. So I'm going to pick out a few of these, And I've picked out some that are approaching being negative, and this is where this talk is quite personal, because this is what I think are the prevailing viewpoints on how to choose ideas in modern academia. And there's really good reasons for these, and they're not because anyone or anything is doing anything negative. It's because of simple systems working together in complex ways. So, why is academia conservative and institutional? Why is it populist and capitalist and sceptical? I'm going to look at just a few of these, and I'll start with institutionalism, because there's something you may not have heard. I don't know if you've come to these talks before, or if you've never set foot into university before, or even if you're a student or a researcher. And that's that right now is not a very good time to be a researcher as a job, because although there are fantastic things going on in science, fantastic opportunities, there are more people than there are jobs. And that leads to a harsh and difficult job market that encourages us to be very conservative. Because when there's a lot of people going for the same job that are similar to each other, one of the few ways you can set yourself apart is by having made a mistake, is by stepping out from the crowd, and is by putting yourself on the spot. So mistakes are hardly criticised, and we are implicitly told that it's dangerous to have new ideas. And that has a huge effect on where the scientific community can and will go. I think I'm going to skip going through these. I would make the point that capitalism is one of the few ways in which universally ideas are valued. And it works great for a lot of things. It's leading to incredible phones coming out of Silicon Valley and cars coming out of Germany. But for a lot of abstract ideas, you can't measure every idea in value. But there's very few ways to get a new idea into the popular sphere unless it makes money. And finally, skepticism I want to talk about, because I think skepticism, the idea that when given a new idea, we doubt it by default, can turn into something much darker, which is cynicism. When given a new idea, we say no to it by default. And I think it's all too easy to become cynical. I think cynicism is a loop. If you start feeling like the world is negative, then the world seems more negative and your cynicism is confirmed. And this is a long intro to a short talk that is going to go in a direction that right now I think you'll be like, why are we hearing this? But it's to warn you that it's so easy to be sceptical and cynical and to fall back on institutionalism and to close yourself off from truly new ideas. So how do we be cynical when we're cynical? We could say no to things, but that's not actually what we often hear or do. Saying no to something, you have to give a reason why you're saying no. You have to give proof, you have to give an argument. And even if you tear an idea to shreds, you're still helping develop it. What actually happens, and what we see so much as scientists, young scientists working in this community, is disengagement. There's a lovely bit in Douglas Adams in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series where he invents a kind of invisibility cloak. And it's not one that makes you transparent or bends light around you. It's just one that makes you look like somebody else's problem. And everyone ignores you. Because no matter what you're doing, no matter where you're going, you're somebody else's problem, and so it just passed on to someone else. You are effectively invisible. If we disengage with an idea, it's easy and it's safe. We don't need to do any argument. We just turn around and we just say, there's probably some reason why the answer is no. And it does nothing to develop an idea, but it can destroy one. Because people need to get together to have and push forward ideas. So let's reset. Let's go back to this image and let's ask, how are we going to see this? What's about to change that's going to make space a possible place for us to go? I gave you 3 things that it wasn't before, but let me re-stress the 3 things in a positive way. The economics of humans going to space works. The politics of humans going to space works. And the physics of humans going to space works. These are big claims, and after all I told you, you should be thinking, I need proof of that. I need to see why those are true. So let's go through them. Let's look at the economics. This is the cost of spaceflight. This is the cost of launching 1 kilogram into orbit over time. So when we first could do it, it cost millions of dollars to launch a kilogram into orbit. Now it costs a few thousand. This is a logarithmic scale, so this is going down in whole factors of 10. And throughout this history, it's basically been going down. There's a lot of interesting history in here. Like here we're seeing the best of the Apollo program. Here we're seeing the space shuttle. This group here might look like we all forgot how to do it. And there's this common fallacy that we kind of forgot how to go to space, and that's what made it so difficult. That's not got expensive because we've forgotten how to do it. That's got expensive because demand has gone up. We've actually put a huge amount of stuff in space. It's what powers our phones, well not powers, but allows our phones to work how they work, allows our cars to navigate. We've had a lot of interaction with space, but we haven't really, as individuals and as a society, gone there. So the cost is going down, and it will just keep going down. This is SpaceX at work, just pushing that cost down and down and down. This is a graph I love because this shows all of human history and all of human ingenuity and industry in one place. This is basically the total amount of money on the planet. And there's a lot of interesting things to see here. For one thing, it just goes up and up, which is kind of weird because there's just one planet. So how are we creating new money? And the way we're creating new money is finding new ways to use what we have. And there's a few really interesting features you're seeing on here. Like this here, this is the Mongol invasions, ruining a huge part of the world's economy. But it's this moment I want to focus on. Why does it go from a low, slow increase to this rocketing up? That there is the railroad. That's the ability for the first time in history to move faster than a horse, to move ideas, to move products and manufactured goods, to move people faster than we had been able to before, and it just opened up the world. National news became possible as the Manchester Guardian would make its way down to London in time for that to go onto the presses. The whole of the American continent suddenly went from being a Wild West wasteland to a place filled with people and industry. And this is evidence of a universal fact of economics, that opening up a new market makes money. Even if you can't predict what that new market will be or how it will make money, new markets make money. And space is a new market that is just waiting to happen. Already there's almost $1 trillion a year invested in space, and that number will lock it up because there's just so many new things that we can do when humanity is in space. The politics works. So this is how much countries are spending on going to space. And there's a couple that you're not too surprised at there, but there's actually a lot of countries spending quite a lot of money. And there's 2 points I want to make here. Firstly, there is a lot of money going to space. Lots of these countries are spending $1 billion a year on researching space. And that's quite a recent trend. That's changed a lot in the last decade. And the other point I want to make is that they're not actually spending that much money. This is a fraction of a percent. It doesn't cost very much to go to space, but the payoff can be so large that this is just going to increase. And it's sad to me that the UK is not on this. The UK is hanging around just here. It's just not putting in enough money to get onto this. But that can change, I think that will change. The other bit of politics we might worry about is who owns space, who has rights to space, and there's a treaty about who owns space, and it basically says nobody owns it, anyone can go there, you can't put weapons of mass destruction there. And something I love about this is one of the most unified ratifying of treaties that you're likely to see. Yes, there are people who have said no, or, well actually, there are people who just haven't been involved in it, and people who haven't fully ratified it. But basically, most of the world and most of the people we might worry about all have agreed that space is for us as a globe, not us as individuals or us as nations. And I want to give an example of a similar sphere to space. This is Antarctica, which is the site of so much fascinating and interesting science research. And it's, although people do lay claims to it, if you look very carefully, I'm sorry they're small, there are hundreds of different flags on this image. And even if one research station is owned by the South Africans or by the British, they are very international communities. And there are thousands of people in Antarctica right now. This might surprise you. So some research bases look like this. But this down here that looks like a cityscape, that's happening as well. Antarctica, which was once this impossible to get to place, is now commonly and widely visited. The science that we can do there, the resources we can extract from there, are all starting to be tapped into. Antarctica looks now like space will look in a few decades, as still a difficult and inhospitable place to be, but a place that we're coming to grips with, learning how to navigate, and starting to make sense of. And now we are in an institute of physics and astronomy, so let me talk about physics. And this is where I've got something really exciting to share with you. Let's first talk about how you actually get to space. This is a beautiful image. This is a long exposure photograph of a SpaceX launch. And all the way up here, it's firing its rockets. It's getting as much speed as it can. This is a test launch. And so they go up, they stop somewhere here, and then they come down. These two little blips are them correcting their course a little bit. And this is them slowing down, slowing down, slowing down, so they can land on a landing pad there. So SpaceX is changing how we go into space by reusing the rockets, making it cheaper. But it's also a nice example of how we actually move through space. Because space, unlike driving a car or flying in a plane, has the difficulty of your fuel is not just where you're getting your energy from. It's where you're getting your momentum from. There is nothing to push against in space. You can't have friction on a road or the air resistance of a propeller. And so all of your momentum, all of your motion has to come from the weight of your fuel. So you have to carry heavy fuel. You have to carry a lot of it. This is the mass of fuel that you need compared to the mass you're taking to get to, this is just outside of Earth's orbit, this is geostationary orbit, and this would be all the way to the moon. So this is just the blue line we're looking at. The red line, it'll come back in a bit. So you need many times more than the actual mass of what you want to take to space in fuel to get there. And that's why the cost is large. That and the fact that space is just empty and scary and full of death. That will change. But there's another line on this graph that seems to save fuel. There's actually a better way of coming and going and moving through space. It doesn't save fuel if you want to go to here, clearly, but all the rest of this we can get to easier, and that's what I want to tell you about today. I am, as I said, a dynamicist. I play around with toy models. I play around with what would happen if we put this thing in this place or span this thing in this way. And I was playing about, and I came to this idea. This is a cable hanging from the moon almost all of the way towards the Earth. And I'm delighted to go through it with anyone who would like to, but I promise you the mathematics works. And that's enough for me. I believe pretty wholly in mathematics, but the economics, the sociology, the politics of it works as well. This is a thing that we are ready to build. And unlike other structures that you might have heard of in space, like you may have heard of the space elevator, this can be built cheaply and easily out of materials we have right now. You don't need some space-age new material. You can buy the materials you need to build this in a chandler's shop. We use them for sailing. It's stable, it's street, it's safe and cheap, and it's completely physically possible. And once you have a cable, the reason why this is important is you can move along a cable for free. You can have for example, a solar-powered car, which is taking energy from the sun and just turning its wheels and pushing against the cable, and is able to go anywhere on this cable without needing any fuel, without any extra costs. So all we have to do is meet this cable and we can take it all the way to the moon. This is not the idea that will make humans, all of us, go into space easily, but will make being in space so much cheaper and more possible than it has been until now. My father is an architect, and I sat him down and I told him I'd love some drawings for this. And as you'll see, he had some fun. So here is the moon and the Earth. And one of the most incredible things that this cable can achieve is that it makes the Lagrange point, this point between the Earth and the moon, stable. So if you put something there, it'll stay there at first on its own, but eventually it'll start to drift towards or away from the Earth, and then it'll get faster and faster and faster, and it will fall towards one of the Earth or the moon. But if you attach to a cable, it can't move in that direction, and it's now stable. And unlike anywhere else in near space, it's the most incredible place to build, because it's pristine. There's a lot of junk that we've put around the Earth, and a lot that just collects there naturally because of micro asteroids and micro meteoroids. But not at the Lagrange point. Orbits passing through there are unstable. You don't get stuff collecting there. And it's gravity free. So you might think, why don't we just build stuff at the International Space Station? But if you drop a tool at the International Space Station, because of the difference in gravity, just over meters, that tool will fly away from you faster and faster. Everything accelerates away from us in low Earth orbit because there's a difference in the gravity of the distance. The Lagrange point, the gravity of the Earth and the Moon cancel out, and we can build on a scale that we almost can't imagine. It won't start with a space station that looks like this. This was my dad getting quite ambitious about it. But starting to build there probably will look something a bit more like this. So this is someone taking on their elevator some kind of prefab box with them and starting to build a structure out of it. And we can bit by bit build up structures, and much like those Antarctic base stations I showed you, can start to have a permanent presence in space and build it out as much as we want. By the way, he is very clearly cribbing off Le Corbusier for this, and if we're not careful, his picture of what space looks like will end up being all of our picture. I don't know if anyone's ever been to Crystal Palace Park, but a couple of guys invented what the dinosaurs were going to look like, and it's taken us the better part of 100 years to get past that. So if we're not careful, my dad will invent what space looks like, which I think I'm okay with. But why do we want to do this? Why do we want people building habitats, growing at the Lagrange point? Well, for one thing, for me, one of the most exciting things is that we can have larger space telescopes than we've ever thought possible. At the moment, the thing that holds back a space telescope is the fact that it's difficult to construct a large mirror in space, because you've got to send it up in a space rocket. And if anybody knows about, for example, the James Webb Space Telescope, this is a structure that unfolds once it gets into space. And it's terrifying, the fact that this thing has to build itself and could go wrong, and the whole thing will be wasted. And no one can go and fix it, no one can go and help it. If you just instead sent up a bunch of mirrors to an engineer with a screwdriver, they can build a perfect telescope. And build it, there's no reason why it should be this big, why it can't be one level of mirrors bigger or two levels of mirrors bigger. It's going to allow us to see more and more things. The distance we can see and the amount we can see goes as the cube of the size of our telescope. We'll find, if we make telescopes twice as big, we'll find 8 times the number of planets, 8 times the number of stars. He also, because at this point we were sitting at the dinner table, my mum got a little bit jealous, so he drew her making a hydroponic garden in a kind of tube, which, not that scientifically relevant, but I promised I'd include it. That's just one example. I could talk about these other ones. There is so much we can do with the just open expanse of stable, pristine space. Probably starting very small. Probably starting with effectively a container from a container ship, with a couple of people living a pretty small existence in it. But it can grow and grow, and it's cheap, and it's safe to get there, and it's part of an infrastructure. All of what I'm saying also you can do on the moon. This means that you can get on and off the moon for free, because that car goes down to the moon. This is going to push forward space science and space industry, and just technology in general. New ideas, humanity pushing forward to new things, generally makes our lives better. It makes side inventions which turn out to be the most important thing in the world. The internet was because a couple of people at CERN wanted to communicate more easily. And I think that is a great example of something that's completely changed our lives. There are a few physics problems yet to solve with this. This is a thing that I came up with lying in bed one night, and I thought, oh, I should write that down, I should see if that works. And I did, and I thought, oh, what do you do with an idea like this? Where do you put an idea like this? And so I tried to share it with the community here. And for exactly the reasons I was saying, not because anyone is against new ideas explicitly, but because new ideas are scary and dangerous for scientists. I've got very little reaction from people. No one has ever pointed out something that doesn't work about this. There might be something. I'm not dogmatic about this. There may be reasons why this doesn't work, and I would love to find them out. That is good science. But a disengaged community you can do nothing with. I've been asked, just for the sake of my own career, to stop working in this, thinking about this, and I probably will. This is an example of the kind of idea that could just get left behind. I don't want that to happen. I hope there are some people in the audience who think they don't want that to happen either, because this has the capacity to help us as a species go forwards, and it also has the capacity to just be a thing that gets dropped and left behind. I should let you guys go out and enjoy your stargazing. I'm going to stick around. I'd love to take any questions. I'm sure that some people have lots of questions. I'll be out by the whiteboards later, explaining anything that people want to hear about. It's a lovely invention, and it won't happen unless people engage with it. And so I'm partly saying this to you, because you never know who will be in any room. And anyone can turn around and be like, yeah, actually, I'm in. Or I'm interested. I just want to see what happens. So come and talk to me. Come and think about it. And if you don't engage with this idea, just open yourself up to engaging with more ideas, because it's so easy not to. Because it's not economics, it's not politics, and it's not physics that are keeping us in space. It's sociology, and the good news is that's the easiest one to change. Thank you for listening to me. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy your stargazing, and I hope you have a lovely night.